Yes, sir, we're officially back at it. This is Book Nice coming at you with a sort of unorthodox review. I have the Marvel Legends 5-pack Disney Store exclusive Tony Stark head and the Bleeding Edge Iron Man armor review. Let's do it.
That's crispy.
So yeah, like I said, this was a Disney Store exclusive, but if I'm not mistaken, this was exclusive to the United Kingdom. And you know, for many years, United Kingdom collectors have been complaining that they don't really get legends in abundance and they don't get certain things and they miss out on a lot of opportunities and have to do a lot of finagling with friends in the States and whatnot. So this was something that was exclusive to the United Kingdom, and not too many people in the States have this that I know of. So this was actually on loaner from my man Ja. I was over his house. I was actually over in Jersey this past weekend with some of my boys out there at my man G's house. And Ja, let me hold on to this. So we got the Bleeding Edge Iron Man armor and the Tony Stark head. We're going to take a close look at those things. And of course, as always, we're going to do some swaps and see how the head looks on some other bodies and whatnot. So let's get into it. Pretty much the draw of this pack, I think, for most collectors was just the Tony Stark head. And being that that was the case, I don't feel like too many people were eager to drop $100+ on a set just for that head, especially if you were trying to do it from a distance or do it from the States. And I think that's probably why this pack hasn't been circulated too much and hasn't been that popular. People just not willing to spend that amount of money for pretty much all repacks. Everything that was in the set was something that was already previously released. You got Iron Man here, what you see. There was Hulk that came in that original 2-pack with the really bad Valkyrie. There was Ultron, which was originally single packed. And there was the Thor from the Return of the Marvel Legends. And then there was the more modern Captain America, the most recent Captain America that we got. I believe it was the most recent one from the 616 universe. Let me see if I could show a picture real quick. So yeah, there you have it. Those were the 5 characters in the pack, and pretty much every character just had some sort of paint variation or something that was a little different from the original release. Again, probably not something that was enough to make you go out and rebuy these figures just to get the Tony Stark head. So as you can see right here, we got Iron Man. The one on the right is the one that came in the 5-pack, and you can see that the color is just a tad bit different from the original release that we got. The original one on the left has some gold highlights as opposed to the yellow. And I think, honestly, neither one of them nailed it as far as the comic books go. I think it's still kind of in between as far as the accents with the yellow or the gold. And as everybody knows with this armor, those blue highlights and the lights on the armor didn't really translate as well as they could have from the comic book. Another slight difference that I noticed right off the bat was that the original release here, the legs on mine were kind of far apart and they couldn't really get any closer together. I don't know if that was just unique to mine. I think it was, because I did see some other versions from other people where it wasn't this bad. I really didn't like that, and it seems like this one that came in a 5-pack is a little better when it comes to that. So I did notice that, and I do like that about this version. Moving right along, here's a nice close-up frontal view of the face. I will say that in pictures, I wasn't really impressed in pictures that I saw, but having it in hand and looking at it in person, it is actually pretty good and pretty accurate. It's not kind of like a fusion of Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. I don't really think this can pass as Doctor Strange. You know, a lot of people have done that with the old Toy Biz Doctor Strange head in the past. And again, this is the modern take on Tony. And you know, this is the more modern look with the goatee. And I do think it looks pretty good. There's not too many paint imperfections or anything on this version. I think it looks very good. Here's a look on the inside. Originally, my man Jai had some wax in here, and I thought that the wax had left all of this residue. But come to find out, it was only a little bit of wax that he had in there, and it's just the paint. The plastic is just molded red. I guess it's just like that on the inside. And there's a side view on his left side. You can see the sideburns and the ear, and everything is pretty distinct there, so that looks pretty good. And the other side on the right, and it looks good. And again, from the front, you can see his eyes are blue. And the back, and you can see not really any highlights in the hair. The hair is just kind of jet black, but it looks good. Again, no paint imperfections or anything. This looks pretty decent. There's the head on the bleeding edge Iron Man body, and I guess as most of you know, this version of Tony's armor is not actually an armor that he would put on. The bleeding edge armor actually came or comes from the hollows of his bones. So at this particular point, Tony Stark is Iron Man. It's not like he's putting on a suit. So you wouldn't really have him holding the helmet as a lot of people like to do. And actually, this version of Captain America and that version of Thor that you see here are the other ones that were in the pack. Although these are not the figures that were in the pack. These, the same versions of these figures were part of the set, just with some different variations. If somebody in the UK is watching, maybe you can say in the comments below what were the major differences in some of the other figures. But moving right along, the head definitely goes on and off with no problem. It was made specifically for this peg, but we'll definitely try it on some other bodies so you can see. Taking a look at the Coulson body. So this was the Coulson body that came in the Marvel Legends 3-pack, and if you look closely, you can see that the peg on the Coulson body is just a tad bit smaller than the peg for the bleeding edge Iron Man armor here. So the head definitely doesn't fit on there as snug as it does with the bleeding edge armor, and I'll show you that. So you're definitely not going to get it to snap on there. For the most part, it's just going to sit on there, but it does sit on there pretty well. I mean, obviously you can use a little wax or sticky tack or whatever you use to make it sit a little more securely. But as far as the proportions go, it does look very good on this body. I'll pull back a little bit and show you. There you go. That looks pretty good. And again, it's not sitting on there as great as it could be, but it still looks pretty good. And it looks really good actually on this body. Nice sleek look for Tony. Even from the back, it looks pretty good. You don't really see the neck peg. So again, if you just use a little wax or something to sit it on there better, this will work perfectly fine. And I've got the chameleon body here, and you can see this peg is definitely larger. So the head's definitely not going to fit on there, but I'll show you how it looks. There you go. Not looking good at all. So if you wanted this to fit on there, you would definitely have to Dremel out this head a bit. And I don't know if it's really worth it for that. Let's see how it'll stack up with some other bodies to see if you will want to weigh your options and if you will want to Dremel it or not. And here we're looking at the body for Bruce Banner, which I don't think a lot of people got just yet either. And the pegs here seem to be just about the same. Let's see if the head fits on there. And that fits on there nicely, and it looks good. It looks proportionate. I feel like it's a bit more snug than the bleeding edge Iron Man armor, but it does pop on, and you can turn it and put it up and down. Only thing I would say is that the skin tones are not a perfect match, but then again, most people's face is not the same exact complexion as their neck and hands anyway. And there he is on the extremist armor body, and that doesn't look too good. The proportions are off. His head looks kind of big. I guess you could make it work in some pictures or display, depending on the perspective. But I don't think it looks that great. I always thought this armor was a little small. This body was a little small anyway, even for the extremists. But it does kind of snap on there, but not really. Like you can hear a little pop, but it's still really loose. So here he is with the classic single-carded Iron Man armor. This was the second release, the one where they changed up the color a little bit from that really yellow, bright yellow, to the gold. And this looks okay. Again, I still think the head is probably just a tad bit too big for this body. But again, you could probably finagle it with some perspective. I don't think it's the greatest, but it does fit on there snugly, and it's not going to move around unless you want it to, and it does maintain the full range of motion. There it is on the SH Figure Arts Mark 45 armor, and that looks pretty good, looks pretty proportionate. Here he is on the Figma Mark 7 armor, and I've actually put the head on both of the import bodies without the peg on, because when I removed the head, the peg was still inside the head, so it probably actually can sit a little bit better on both of those. I just don't feel like removing the peg from inside the head right now. I'll show you what I mean. But yeah, if I had it sitting on there with the peg still in the neck, it might actually sit a little better. But I still think it looks pretty good. You know, this armor is a little bit bigger than the Figure Arts armor, and it actually fits in pretty well with Legend scale. But if you were lucky enough to get this armor with the get the full spec version of this armor, then you already got a Tony Stark head. Anyway, that looks pretty decent. This head is definitely a nice accent piece for your collection, and to give you a nice laid back Tony or unmasked Tony Stark. But I don't know if most collectors want to sacrifice the money or put up the money to make that happen, especially if you're not living in the United Kingdom. It can get quite a bit pricey just to acquire this head. I think I'm gonna try to see if my man Dave Castle will cast the head, and then maybe he'll sell some for the people here stateside. And hopefully that will happen. Thanks to my man John for letting me borrow this for the review. I might actually have to just steal this and not give it back to him. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time. Peace.